Hello again. This is the third part of a series where I'm trying to make my blog look like my website. So this is for a client, and so far we've been able to take the very top section here, and this is what it looks like when I click, through all of the information here. But when I click on blog, it looks just like the website, and all of these links go right back to the regular site. So it looks like you haven't even left the site, even though you're at the full-fledged blog section. Now, the only thing that's left is when I click on the regular site here and I go to to a certain size, as you can see, I get a new menu here that has some JavaScript that goes up and down just like this. So we want to add that same JavaScript to our blog area, because right now when we go on blog, this is what we get. Okay, so in order to do this properly, without having to go over and over and over here, what we're going to do is we're going to open up a pen that has something similar. And as you can see, this kind of does the same thing. And the way I did that was I created the navigation and all that, right? But then here's our mobile button that we have inside of our navigator. And the mobile button is originally not being displayed, as you can see here. And when we get to the media screen, and right here, we just put it at max with 625 so that we can see it here. When we get to that we get anything smaller than 625, the mobile button becomes inline block. That way it doesn't become a block element that goes 100%. It just wraps around the actual words. And then, of course, color and give it some padding, background, etc. But then the actual nav, where all of our navigation is, that right now is display none. And that's going to be driven by our JavaScript, or our jQuery actually. And we change our navigation, our A tags, our anchor tags, to being more of a block spot. So if we comment this out and refresh, you can see that this is what our stuff is going to look like. Okay, so it's going to look more like what we have here. Let's go back home. It's going to look more like what we have here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. It's really quite simple once you have it set up. So let's go ahead and unclick this, run this. And now we have it the way we want it. Okay, so now we're going to add some jQuery. And in our jQuery, let's initialize it first. Okay, now that's all set up. Now what we're going to say is when we click the menu button, we click this menu button, we want the nav to open and close as we toggle. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So with jQuery, it's really quite simple. We're going to call our menu button. So the menu button is mobile button. So when we click the mobile button, then we want the nav. Notice I don't have a hashtag or a dot because nav is just a tag. It's not an ID, nor is it a class. So we want our nav to slide toggle. Simple as that. And so we run, then we put a function inside of here. Now it's going to work. That's much better. So now we have it toggling the way we want it to toggle. Okay, and if we don't want it that quickly, which I don't, let's make it a little slower by going 600. That's a little bit better. Okay, so now we're having an issue. Watch what the issue is. Now, right now, it's actually being shown And when we click on it like this, now the navigation is gone, because the way that jQuery works is when we slide up, we're actually saying display none of our navigation. We don't want the navigation to be display none. We want the navigation to actually come through when we're coming through. So in order to do that, we're actually going to say, we're going to give another @media screen. This time we're going to say min width, and we're going to do one higher, just so that we can catch it as soon as it gets big. So we're going to say now our nav will be display block, and then we're going to say important. That way it's going to display no matter what. So let's run this. Now we have this displaying the way it should. If we do this and turn it off, it's still going to come back, because now when we go anything bigger than 626, it's going to display no matter what. Okay. So now how do we bring this over to our Blogger blog? Okay. So in order to do this, we're going to, first of all, we're going to change the way this looks here. So our blog needs a button, and it needs a few other things. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this whole thing inside of a div ID, which will equal blogger nav. Okay. But then we're going to close this out with a div. Inside there, now I know it says blogger nav here, but what we're going to do is we're going to say, are we just going to call this navigation outer? Let's call it navigation outer, or nav outer. Let's do that. Nav outer. That works. Inside the nav outer, of course, we have to have a div with an ID of mobile button. Just like that. And we're going to call it menu. Okay. So when we save that, we have menu. Okay. So let's refresh and make sure that everything's right. Okay. So now all of this is correct. Okay. So now what we have is we have to tell what we got to actually tell it when we want it to present. So it looks like I want it to present right at, let's make it 600, right at 600. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is see if this template has jQuery. So I can see from the top that it probably doesn't, but let's do a check anyway. So we're going to do Command F. We'll put in the word jQuery. And as you can see, it has jQuery right here. So we do have jQuery. So since we have jQuery set up, we can go ahead and do what we need to do. So let's go to the section that has our navigation, because in our navigation here, we want to make sure we turn off the actual mobile button. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's find where our navigation, our nav bar and all that is. So let's go to nav area. Let's go to find nav. And here's our blogger nav. Okay. So we have our blogger nav. We're going to say that the nav outer is the thing that has the background of that color. So let's go ahead and do that. Nav outer is what has that. And so we're going to save this, refresh this, and now we have it the proper way. Okay, that works. Then we're going to say that mobile nav display none. Refresh that. Refresh this. The mobile nav, what did I call it? Oh, mobile button, sorry. Let's go back here. Very good. So now when we refresh this, now we have no button. Okay, very good. So now we're going to put our @media query. So our media query, we said we're going to have it at 600. So let's go ahead and put it at 600. Let's go down here. @media, screen, and max width, 600 pixels. And now we're going to say mobile button, display inline block. And then we're going to say color is F2, F7, F1. Background is what we have here, which is, well, let's actually just copy all this. Copy. And then let's paste all this in here. Where's our @? There it is. Okay. And so let's refresh. Let's refresh this and see if it works. And it works beautifully. And the only thing we need to do is make the size of the menu a little bit bigger. Let's see how big we need to make it. Let's go ahead and see how big this is. Font size is 1.2, and the padding and the margin are both 10 px. Okay, let's do that. So the padding is 10 px, and the margin is also 10 px. Okay, and then our font size was 1.2 rem, and we save that. We refresh, and that's a lot better. It looks a lot more like this menu. Although this menu is a little bit wider, this is a little bit better. I like it. And so now we could turn off our nav button here. But before we do that, let's make it the way it's supposed to look. So let's go ahead and do that. According to this, our navigation is going to be, let's see, our nav A is going to have all of this. So let's go ahead and do that. So that would be our blogger nav A. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so that should be it for that part. Let's refresh. Boom, that works beautifully. Okay, so now that we have all of this set up the way we want it to be set up, we got to close and open the outer nav here. So the outer nav is exactly what it's called, the blogger nav. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the blogger nav. And say display none. And we refresh, and now there's no display on that. So when we click this button, nothing happens right now. So let's add the jQuery. So let's go to the bottom here. Let's find the end of the body. So to do that, we'll do the same thing. We'll go to find. We're going to say body. And there it is. Now we can add our script right here. Okay, so now we have that script. Let's go down here. And all we did was this. So let's add this, copy, paste. The only difference here, let me do some tabbing here. Okay, the only difference is that even though the mobile button is correct, this is not what we're changing. We're actually changing the nav, what is it called? Blogger nav. Okay, slide toggle. And let's see what happens. So we refresh this. We refresh this. And there we have it. Now, when we get bigger, of course, the navigation goes away. So we have to add that little extra code on our navigation. Let's find the @media. Here it is. And then we're going to add the same @media. The same @media. But this time we're going to say min width and go up just one. And they'll say, what was it called? Blogger nav. And we're going to say display block important. And save that. Let's refresh. Let's minimize our area here. And there's our navigation, white as rain. And so now we can click here, go to our DTM Real Talk, click right here, go to galleries, go right here, go to blog. And it's a little bit of an opposite day, but it still works. Okay, so there we have it. We have our blog that works perfectly well. On our next video, we're going to show you how to you've created the site for your client, and now we want the client to be able to update their blog anytime they want. It's really quite simple to be able to do that, but I'll show you how to do it if you don't know how to do it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.